Hello, I'm Bill Butts, President of the Population Reference Bureau, and something quite exciting happened here in our Washington office several weeks ago. Dr. Joel Cohen and Dr. Wolfgang Lutz, two of the world's leading demographic scientists, published within a week or two of each other 2 articles looking into the future of the world's population, of the world's welfare, and asking what will the effects of population and demographic factors be on that future. One of these was published in one important world journal and the other in another, and they both appeared side by side. Well, since Joel and Wolfgang were going to be in town here at PRB, they agreed to sit together and discuss each other's point of view and discuss with PRB staff and the rest of the PRB trustees what we all think might happen in the world if various population policies and factors proceed in one way or another. And I'm very glad to be able to share this exchange with you. And I feel sure that you'll enjoy it and learn from it just as much as we did.
Well, my main point on this book by Václav Smil really is that history doesn't just happen. History is made by people. And it is the changing distribution of those people, where they live, how old they are, whether they're men and women, and their properties. What are their views, what are their educations, what are their languages or their cultural background. And those combinations of properties change over time. And we demographers know this very well, and actually we have developed some tools in seeing which part of this change over time is what we call a cohort effect. Cohorts are groups of people that share the same starting conditions, so to say. And many of the things that we learned during our young ages, we carry with us through the rest of our lives. It's a very slowly changing process. And this is also the reason why we can do population projections several decades into the future with high certainty. Because if we know how many 10-year-old girls are alive today, we have a quite good handle on estimating and projecting how many 70-year-old women there will be 60 years into the future. And if we know whether these 10-year-old girls have gone to elementary school, and later on the 20-year-old girls have received some high school education or higher education, we have a good analytical handle of projecting the future composition of the population by level of education. Now, I'm saying this because the same is true for many other things, such as language use. I happened to be yesterday for the first time in this fascinating new Museum of the American Indian down on the Mall, and I was just taken by so many cultures have simply disappeared because they have no carriers of the cultures. A few old ladies have been interviewed who still speak those old languages, but the young people are not learning them anymore. So this is just a perfect example of how history evolves based on people, based on generations, one generation replacing the other. And this, of course, is also our hope for the future. If we want to sort of see an improvement in the educational composition of the population, we have to start soon educating, particularly the girls, but also the boys, and then only 10 or 20 or 30 years later, it will result in a significant improvement of the average education. Now this brings me back to a point that Joel made in his comment of Václav Smil, namely that there is so much unknown about the kind of disaster that we are expecting in the future. And particularly with climate change, but also with many of the others, pandemic flu, we just don't know when it will happen and what exactly will be the consequences on people living in different parts of the world. So you said very clearly that it is important to have this longer-term vision as long as it doesn't take any attention away from the current problems that we have. So we need to find strategies that address the future and empower people to deal with these problems in the future, and at the same time help the underprivileged of today. And again, my bottom line there is that education sort of is the perfect strategy. It will help very soon to improve conditions in many of the poorest countries today, but also is probably the single best investment in the empowerment of people under an uncertain future, where we don't know which disasters will strike, under what way. The best way is just be prepared and be empowered to confront and adapt to these challenges. I stop here.
Thank you. Thank you for those excellent comments, and thank you, Bill. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the excellent editorial by Wolfgang and its relation to my book review. I am accepting at face value Bill's promise that everybody has read both documents. Wolfgang and I agree that education is a critical variable in influencing the future trajectory of human population. I find nothing to disagree with in Wolfgang's editorial, and I would have been very proud to have written it myself, as I said to Wolfgang earlier. It goes beyond my own efforts by giving results from detailed projections carried out at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis in Austria. Wolfgang gives you numbers as well as ideas. Towards the end of my book review, I, like Wolfgang, advocated for universal basic and secondary education. A difference between Wolfgang's editorial and my book review is that my review emphasizes more the enabling conditions required to make possible universal education. Here I'll mention 4 of them: food, information, peace, and energy. Education requires adequately nourished learners. Without enough food, without adequate health, without functioning brains, children don't learn well. The paradox is that humans currently grow more than enough food to provide all people an adequate diet, while 1 billion people, more or less, are chronically hungry, and a huge fraction of children in developing countries are stunted and malnourished. Next, the revolution in information technology offers enormous potential for reaching billions of children with a level of quality never before attainable and at a cost lower than ever, but that revolution has not happened yet. Third, peace. A crucial enabling condition to attain the happy world envisioned by Wolfgang is a world not at war with itself. Thank you, Francis, for raising that question this morning. Fourth, the challenge of providing the energy required to create the material prosperity that will enable global efforts at education is another important piece of context. Finally, I would like to touch on a point not discussed in either Wolfgang's editorial or my book review. That is the question of the goals or content of education. Education is not a uniform commodity like cement or steel plate. Education carries a message, conveys values, and shapes behavior. What messages, values, and behaviors do we want from education? Neither Wolfgang nor I discussed that question. I have just completed editing a book jointly with Martin Malin at Harvard called, get this short and catchy title, International Perspectives on the Goals of Universal Basic and Secondary Education. If you read the title, you've got 2/3 of the book. This book will be published in the next month or 2 by Routledge in New York and London. The result of a decade-long project at the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in Cambridge, it collects 20 chapters by individuals around the world from every major religious, cultural, geographical, and professional origin. The aim of the book is to initiate a global conversation on what people want education to accomplish at the primary and secondary levels. The diversity of views is staggering. We have work ahead of us to reach an understanding, not necessarily agreement, but at least understanding on what different people want from education. That conversation about why we educate children is as important, I believe, as expanding the access described in Wolfgang's excellent editorial. I am very happy to be working in the same direction as Wolfgang to bring the benefits of universal education to all the world's children. Thanks very much.